Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. All right, everybody. Night back. Good to be back. Hope everybody's having a great Monday. No live show today. If you missed Sunday's live show, make sure to go back and download it on podcast, Apple, Spotify, or listen here on YouTube. By the way, as you could tell, no Monday show because we're in some different settings. I'm actually in Provo, Utah, Kansas at BYU on Tuesday night. I am fired up for this game. Kansas coming off the loss to Utah kind of needs a win. BYU squarely on the bubble needs a win as well. We'll be live, I think, from the Marriott Center on Tuesday night for a full post-game show, talking all things college hoops. So I'm very excited. First time to Provo, first time to really Utah, but we'll talk about that one here on Tuesday. Instead today, we got to do an update. This guy right here, Nate Ament, one of the best high school players in America. And it was really about 2 or 3 weeks ago that we did kind of a fascinating, in my opinion at the time, update on his recruitment. He was a kid that it felt like he was down to 2 or 3 schools. And then all of a sudden there was this news rush of all this new information. We thought at the time it was probably a Duke, Louisville, maybe Tennessee on the outside looking in conversation. Then, first thing in February, takes a visit to Duke when he wasn't expected to visit Duke, takes a visit to Tennessee. And then, there's talk of a Kentucky visit upcoming, which he has since taken. There was even a moment in time where Joe Tipton, and I love Joe, he's great at what he does, so this is not a criticism, but put out a report that he was set to visit St. John's, and then the report since has changed. And so it was one of those weird recruitments where this kid is a senior in high school in late February now, and it felt like he was adding stuff and adding visits and adding schools at a time when most of his contemporaries are already committed or certainly down to a school or two. So I want to go ahead and update this recruitment because really I think the last day or two, it's taken about a week, I should say, taken some fascinating twists because Nate Ament, of course, took a visit to Kentucky on Tuesday. And it feels like Kentucky is a shooting star in this recruitment. It feels like they're back in the mix. Some think they're right in the mix as the favorite. By the way, John Calipari's been in to see him once or twice over the last couple weeks. And so I kind of just want to spend some time updating this recruitment, a little bit of a quieter Monday, but I think there is a lot to peel back in this recruitment. So let's dive in. Let's talk about the player, Nate Ament. I've mentioned it a few times. Fascinating player, phenomenal player with a phenomenal story. In terms of the game, 6'8", 6'9", really kind of does it all. New age kid. Can handle the ball, makes threes, can beat people off the dribble, can finish at the rim. Listen, I don't want to put a label on anybody at 17, 18 years old. And I especially don't want to do it in this class because there's so many good players. But there are NBA people that think he could be the best player in this class when it's all said and done. Ranked number 5 in the 24/7 recruitings rankings now. Again, I'm not going to pit him against AJ DeBonsa, who's going to BYU, Darren Peterson, who's going to Kansas, Cam Boozer, who's going to Duke, who's better, who's not, who's this, who's that. But this is a kid that, barring something shocking, he will hear his name called in the top 10 of the 2026 NBA draft. And he's going to make one college program very happy over the next few months. And that's really kind of where it gets interesting, right? Because with his recruitment, and we talked about it, it's been a very slow process, and I don't blame the kid in any way, shape, or form, and I hope it doesn't come off that way. The bottom line is that when you look at his recruitment, was a kid that, listen, I don't want to say he came completely out of nowhere last spring, because he did have a few pretty big offers, most notably Duke going into last spring and summer. But then it was mid-May when he just blew up. This was a kid that, mid-May gets an offer from, gets an offer from Carolina, gets an offer from Kansas, gets an offer from UConn, gets an offer from that new Kentucky staff. And so you just tell he went from very, very, very good prospect to, he's one of the best players in high school basketball. And it's time to acknowledge him as such. In terms of his recruitment, listen, the recruitment was very slow in the fall. I didn't blame him. I don't blame him. Listen, take full advantage of the opportunities presented to you. So he takes a lot of visits. He obviously took a visit in the fall to Texas and Notre Dame and this and that. But at the same time, it felt like, again, over the last 3, 4, 5 weeks, it felt like the recruitment was slowing down. took a visit to Tennessee. Is Tennessee in the mix? Duke and Louisville were the perceived favorites. It was kind of crazy because he wasn't expected to take any more visits to Duke, then shows up for the Carolina game. And oh, by the way, Cam Boozer and Caden Boozer show up alongside him. They were not expected to take any more visits to Duke as well. And so I just bring it up because it's been a fascinating recruitment to follow. But the new twist in the last couple days is that he took a visit to Kentucky. Well, really two new twists. One, takes the visit to Kentucky on Tuesday night. Great time to be in the arena. I was only watching on TV, so Kentucky fans crush me in the mentions if it was a terrible atmosphere. But it looked like an awesome atmosphere, huge game. You beat a border rival in Tennessee, sweep them on the season while dealing with injuries. Just felt like the vibes were high and rough, felt like a great atmosphere. And it certainly seems like Nate Ament has certainly, enjoyed his time at Kentucky, because now there are multiple reports that Kentucky has now put themselves in the mix atop his recruitment. And so I want to go ahead and dive into that. But I also want to mention an interesting twist as well, because Arkansas, John Calipari ain't giving up either. He actually took a plane, went to watch a workout last week as well. So Arkansas trying to get into the mix, Kentucky now firmly in the mix. Still a little confused about that St. John's twist, but that's another conversation for another day. But as far as everything is concerned, let's go ahead and dive in. First of all, Arkansas side of things, I think it is a very, 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 very long shot right now, okay? Listen, you never count out Cal. And Cal, listen, I think Cal, there's a couple things working in Cal's why this is becoming a thing now for Cal. I think one, listen, he's always going to bet on talent. Nate Ament's basically the top uncommitted player in America, one of the few elite uncommitted players. And I also think for Arkansas, I know it doesn't directly correlate, but I think the front court's probably going to look a little bit different than he was even expecting maybe a month or 2 months ago. Adu Thiero is going to be a first-round pick next year. I mean, it's going to happen. Now, he's got stuff to work on, but man, oh man, he has played his way into first-round contention. And I know they certainly don't play the same position, but Big Z all of a sudden in the last probably 3 weeks is playing his best basketball as well. And so now he's 21 going on 22 years old. Is it more likely that he goes pro as well? So all of a sudden, I'm not surprised that Cal's making a push, because the bottom line is, like, he's going to need help in the front court. I still think they're very much on the outside looking in. As of right now, Nate Ament is not expected to even take a visit to Arkansas. If you don't take a visit, it's hard for me to believe you're going to commit somewhere. So bottom line is Arkansas is making a push. I don't really believe that they're truly in the mix. Team that I do believe is in the mix, though, is Kentucky, okay? And with Kentucky, listen, you don't want to overreact to anything. But it is, a couple things are true indisputably. One, they lost out on Caleb Wilson. It happens. You're not going to get everybody. And so they do very much need help in the front court. And so they obviously have ramped up their efforts. I think the other thing that stands out to me, Nate Ament fits perfectly with the players that they already have committed, the two guards in Caden Lewis and Jasper Johnson. Oh, by the way, on top of that, Malachi Moreno at the 5. But you're going to need kind of that big wing. That is a spot that is not solidified. Now, you're going to have Colin Chandler back next year, but is he a guy that can step in and immediately be a major contributor? Maybe Trent Noah now all of a sudden. I don't know. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you have the opportunity to bring in a Nate Ament type prospect, you just got to go ahead and do it, right? And so I think obviously they've ramped up kind of the interest in him. And I think it's reciprocated, right? Took the visit, a lot of pictures popping out. And again, those multiple reports that Kentucky is now in the mix. I think some people have him in that upper tier. I guess from my perspective, what I would say is, listen, I think there's two things. One, first of all, anytime anyone takes any visit, it's incredible, right? I mean, you go somewhere, you get to go to a big game this time of year, you're wined and dined, you're taken through the facility, you get to do the photo shoot, you get to take pictures, you get to do this, you get to do that. It's always going to be fun. Mark Pope is never not going to be great one-on-one in a recruiting setting. I mean, he's got the personality for days. Players love him. Players relate to him. He played in the NBA. He checks all the boxes. I mean, he hasn't won at the highest level in college yet, but he's basically been a high major coach for like 2 years, because remember, with respect to BYU, in the city that I'm sitting in right now, they were a WCC program until 2 years ago. So I bring it up because I think a lot of those 2025 kids were waiting to see what this thing looked like. And I think they've seen, oh, this guy's for real. This guy's going to win. this guy's going to have success at this school, and it shows even coming off a loss to Texas with the wins against Tennessee, home and road, with the neutral court win against Duke, with the neutral court win against Gonzaga, with the win at home against Florida, which looks better and better by the day. So I just bring it up to very simply say that, I think that Mark Pope is going to blow you away in any one-on-one setting. And then on top of that, again, I just go back to this team is playing not great basketball right now, but obviously, injuries are going on. I don't think a recruit really cares if you lose at Texas. And Mark Pope has proven he's going to win at this level. So to me, it's been a great week for Kentucky. I'll say this, and maybe I'll get crushed in the comments. I still feel like it's a little early to put them in the Duke Louisville tier. Those two schools have been on this kid forever. Louisville, Pat Kelsey is doing incredible things. Mikal Brown Jr. is already committed. And so when I look at where Louisville is, I don't think their stature has fallen at all. I just don't. I think he's winning. He's like Mark Pope. He's doing everything that he promised he would do the day he took the job. Louisville is going to go to the NCAA tournament. They're probably not going to win the ACC based on, the number of games left and who Duke has and how bad the league is. But it doesn't change the fact that Louisville is one of the best stories in all of college basketball, as we've discussed here on the Aaron Torres pod. And so I just bring it up to very simply say, by the way, after that loss at Georgia Tech, they've now won 4 straight, all by double figures. So yeah, Louisville's going to be okay, 13-2 in the ACC. We'll see if they can make a run to the top. But, they're going to have the double bye in the ACC tournament. They're going to be awesome, et cetera, et cetera. So I bring it up because I don't think Louisville's gone anywhere. I don't think Duke's gone anywhere. I mean, if you were interested in playing for Duke and with Cam Boozer and with Caden Boozer and with Shelton Henderson, the other 5-star committed, what has changed that makes you less interested in doing that? And so I just took a visit for the Carolina game. That was probably awesome. Duke won by 1 million. So I don't think Duke and Louisville have fallen. I think maybe Kentucky has risen a little bit. I don't really understand where Tennessee fits into all this, but that's another conversation for another day. I'd be shocked at this point if Tennessee really was able to land this kid. But to me, I sit there and say, I still think it's hard for me to say that Kentucky is in a quote unquote better position than Duke or Louisville. They might be, maybe it's a 3-way tie at top. I don't think they're like the leader by any stretch. And I would still kind of lean towards Duke and Louisville. Last thought on this, by the way, I've seen some stuff of he could commit in the next 2 or 3. I don't see that happening, and we've talked about this. At this point, I actually don't see the value in committing in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I think you take it into April, you take it into how do the rosters shake out, even like Duke's going to have like 2 or 3 guys that are going to have NBA draft decisions, transfer portal decisions. I mean, you think about all those freshmen that are on that team right now. Cooper Flagg's going pro, Malawatch is going pro, and you've been able to replace some of them, but who's coming back? Who's staying? What about the vets? What are going to be the vets that they bring in around the young players? So to me, I don't really understand the idea of committing late February, early March when you could just wait another month. Nobody's going to, nobody's going to give away your spot if you're Nate Ament and you want to go. And so to me, this feels like one of the kids, he's probably going to go into April. I think he probably should. If I was advising him, I would say he should, not because of any NIL situation, just because of what's the rush? You're going to have your spot wherever you want. And just make sure that the roster is a roster that you're comfortable playing with in a situation that you're comfortable in. So we'll see, but this is a fascinating recruitment, man, and we're going to continue to talk about it, continue to conversate about it, because it is great, and it's certainly creating plenty of entertainment and plenty of interest, certainly, in what is otherwise a pretty slow last couple weeks of the college hoops regular season. I think everybody's just trying to get to the finish line of conference tournaments and see how they do in March before portal season, before all that. And we'll have it all covered. So if you're not subscribed to the Aaron Torres pod, please make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, all that good stuff. If you're not subscribed on YouTube, we just closed 50,000 subscribers the other day. We appreciate your support. How quickly can we get to 60K is the question I want to know now.